Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Joy's Fashion World. In today's tutorial, we'll be learning how to cut and sew this beautiful Drawstring Bubu top you are seeing. If this is what you want to learn how to cut and sew, you definitely have to keep on watching till the end. And to my returning subscribers, thank you for coming back. Thank you for always. I do appreciate. And if you are coming across this channel for the first time, you are highly welcome. This is Joy's Fashion World, where we share sewing tutorials, tips and tricks, and fashion inspiration. If this is what you want, please kindly join this family by subscribing and also click on the notification bell so that you don't miss out when we drop a new video. And please give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube can recommend it to lots of people. Share to your friends and also comment. You can see this is the top looking beautiful on my client. Thank you. So let's get started. So this is the fabric we'll be using, and it's an Ankara print fabric. The first thing you need to do is to place it on fold this way, and the amount to place on fold is half of your shoulder measurement plus your sleeve length and allowance. So after that, the next thing you want to do is to roll out a straight line, and this straight line will serve as our starting line. So after which, next is to mark your neck measurement. So I'm making use of the depth and width of 3 inches by 3 inches, and I connect it with a curve as seen. After which, mark half of your shoulder measurement, and you also mark your sleeve length plus 2 inch seam allowance. That is the allowance I use for my sleeve length. After which, on that, you go down with 1 inch, which is serve as our shoulder slope, and you connect it back to the neckline as seen. So next is to determine your sleeve opening, of which I make use of 9 inches and I mark it down. And on that 9 inches we mark what we got on the starting line, which is 23 inches. We also mark it on the 9 inches as seen. After which, you connect the 2 points together. Now is to mark our top length, and the top length I'm working with is 32 inches plus 2 inches for hemming allowance, which makes it 34 inches. So I mark it down and I connect the points together into a straight line as seen. The next thing you want to do is to mark your body measurement, which is half of your shoulder measurement plus your sleeve length, which is 21 inches. This time I ran no seam allowance. If you remember, on the starting line we add 2 inch seam allowance, but this no seam allowance. So you mark your 21 inch to the top length and you connect it with a straight line as seen. And on the armhole, come out with 1 inch and you cover it that way so that it relaxes properly. After which, you cut it out. We are done with the drafting of the front piece. After cutting out, this is what our front piece is looking like. So we'll be using it to cut out our back piece. So you also place your fabric on fold with the same measurement you place on fold when cutting the front piece. After folding it into 2, you also place your front piece on it and you align it properly. After doing all of that, next is to mark out your back neck depth of 1 inch and you connect it to meet the 3 inch width as seen with a curve. After which, you cut out your neck and you cut out the remaining part, tracing it with the front piece as seen. And this is what it's looking like after cutting, and this is our back piece as you can see. So the next thing you want to do is on the center back, go down with 3 inches that way and you mark it down and you also slit it open. And yes, we are done with the cutting of our top. Now let's cut out the strap for the side. So you pick a piece of fabric, and I have about 48 inches as seen. So the width of the strap I'm working with is 1.5 inch, and we'll be needing 4 straps. So you mark your 1.5 each all the way to the down of your piece and you cut it out. So these are the straps we will be using on the side, and with this we have come to the end of the cutting. Let's head to the sewing machine. You are welcome to the sewing machine. So the first thing we need to do on the sewing machine is to work on our back piece first. So the 3 inches opening with slit, we are going to use a bias to turn it over. So you place your bias right side facing each other on the fabric and you stitch it down. using the folded edge on the bias as a guide. After sewing, cut your thread, cut out the excess bias also, and you give it a little notch at the down part as seen. After which you flip the bias over to the wrong side and you stitch it down also as seen. This is what it's looking like after we are done turning it over with our bias. Cut out your thread for a neat finish. So the next thing you want to do is to join your shoulders together. So you pick your front piece, place it on the back piece, right side facing each other, and you stitch it down with 1/2 inch. After stitching, always cut out your thread for a neat and a professional finish work. So you also join the other shoulder with 1/2 inch and you stitch it down. After joining the shoulders together, the next thing you want to do is to hem the sleeve area. So you hem it with the 2 inches allowance we left when cutting. So mark out the 2 inches allowance as seen and you fold it. After folding, you stitch it down as seen. After stitching it down, cut out your thread and you repeat the same process on the other sleeve area as seen. Now that we are done hemming our sleeve area, the next thing we want to do is to also hem the down part of our bubu top. So you mark the 2 inches allowance we left when cutting. That is the allowance we left for the hemming of our bubu top. So you mark it all the way to the end and you fold it. So you fold 1 inch in and you also fold it again. So you fold it in that way and you stitch it down. We'll also be doing same on the other side as well. After hemming the down part, now is to join the side of our bubu top together. So we'll be using 1 inch to join it together. You align it equal and you mark your 1 inch to the hem of the bubu top, after which you stitch it down as seen. After stitching, cut out your thread and you give it a notch around the arm area as seen. You also repeat same on the other side and you also notch it as well. After which, the next thing we want to do is to fold our straps. So you fold it into 2 equal half and you also fold it again as seen and you top stitch on it. That's how we're going to fold all our 4 straps. After stitching our strap, this is what we have. The next thing we want to do is to join our strap to our bubu top. Now bring in your bubu top. We'll be attaching the straps at the sides of the top. To do this, gently open up the side seam allowance you created earlier. Place one of the straps in between the seam. Make sure it exceeds about 1/2 inch past the notch area. Next, stitch it in place to secure the strap onto the top. As you sew, fold the seam allowance inward to neatly enclose any raw edges. Be careful not to sew over the strap itself. Just stitch along the seam all the way down to the hem of the top. Cut out your thread. You can see this is what we have after we are done fixing one of the straps. You can see what it's looking like already. Next is to also do same on the other side. So you place one of the strap in between that way. You place it in between the seam. Make sure it exceeds about half an inch past the notch area. Next is to stitch it in place to secure the strap onto the top. As you sew, fold the seam allowance inwards to neatly enclose any rough edges, and be careful not to sew over the strap itself. Just stitch along the seam all the way down to the hem of the top as seen. Always remember to cut out your thread for a neat finishing. So this is what it's looking like after we are done. This is the right side of our top. You can see how beautiful it's looking already. I also went ahead to add the strap on the other side of our top off camera. So next is to shape our top. Let's do that. Fold your top into two that way, arrange it properly, and the next thing you want to do is to input your measurement. So from the shoulder, I went down with 10 inches, which will serve as our sleeve opening, and that 10 inches will also serve as our chest line. So on the 10 inches, I input her bust measurement, divide by 4 plus 1 inch for ease allowance, and I mark it down. And on the down part of the top, I input her hip, divide by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance, and I also mark her waistline, which is 16 inches, and I input her waist circumference, divide by 4 plus 1 inch ease allowance, and I connect the points together. Turn your top over and also repeat same. So from the shoulder, go down with 10 inches for the armhole opening and 16 inches for your waistline. So on that armhole opening, input your bust circumference, divide by 4 plus 1 inch ease allowance. On the waist, you also input the waist, divide by 4 plus 1 inch seam allowance, and on the down part, the hip, divide by 4 plus 1 inch ease allowance, and you connect the points together as seen. So when we open it, this is what it's looking like. You can see the line we draw. So we'll be taking it to our sewing machine and we'll stitch it down. But before doing that, let's cut out our neckline. And in order to do it, we'll first of all measure around the neckline. So after measuring it, what we have is what we use in cutting the neckline. So after measuring I got 18 inches as seen. So I got 18 inches. So you bring a piece of fabric, and in order to know the amount to place on fold, that 18 inches, you divide it by 4. So after dividing it by 4, we got 4.5 inches. So that 4.5 inches, you add 2.5 inches, and that 2.5 inch is the length of the neck I'm working with. So the length of the neck is 2.5. So 4.5 plus 2.5 will give us 7. So that's the amount you place on fold. That's the amount of fabric you'll be needing. So you can see we have 7 inches after folding. So you fold the fabric like you want to cut a flare. So after folding, the next thing you want to do is to mark your 4.5 inch. So from that point, place your tape and you mark the 4.5 inch we got after dividing our 18 by 4. After which, from that mark area, you mark your 2.5 inches, which is our neck length. So 2 inches for the neck length and 1/2 inch is for the joining allowance, after which you cut it out. So after cutting, this is what we have. The next thing you want to do is to measure it to see if it's giving you the 18 inches. Since it's a fold, you measure it to check if it's 9 inches. So we measure it and I add 1 inch extra to mine so that we use it to overlap each other at the back when we join it to our top, after which I cut it out. So this is it. This is what it's looking like. The next thing we want to do is to take it to our sewing machine and join it to our top. Okay, before doing that, let's shape our top. So the line we drew initially, will sew along that line. So you stitch along the line, but please don't stitch it to the hem just the way I did. Stop 5 inches before the hem line. So don't stitch it to the hemline as I did. Stop 5 inches before the hemline. So after doing that, repeat same on the other side. Stitch along the mark area and you stop 1/2 inch before the hemline, so that when we are drawing our strap, it will give us that effect we are looking for. So I later lose mine off camera. So the next we want to do is to join our neckline. Bring in your neck piece and you place it right side facing each other and you stitch with 1/2 inch. Make sure you are stitching the upper part and not the part you will use to join it to the neckline. After stitching, give it a notch and you flip the excess to one side and you top stitch on it. After top stitching, cut your thread for a neat finishing and you flip it over to the right side. Arrange it properly after which you fold it into two and you notch the midpoint of your neckline as seen. After notching the midpoint of the neckline, also bring in your top and you also notch the midpoint of the neckline of your top also. So you pick one side of the neckline, you pick one side, you place it right side facing each other with your top, and you also place it notch to notch and you stitch it down with half of an inch. Stitch from the center to one end and you turn it over. You also stitch from the center to the other end as seen. Cut out your thread. Now is to lock the end of our neckline, so you turn it over to the wrong side and you stitch it down. When stitching, fold half inch of one of the piece, that way you fold it in and you stitch it down. You also repeat same on the other end of the neckline. Once you are done, cut out your thread and the excess and you turn it over to the right side as seen. You also cut the excess on the other end and you turn it to the right side. So after turning, this is what we have. The next thing you want to do is to place it on the neckline and you top stitch on it, folding in your half inch as seen. So take your time and do it properly. Make sure you take your time and you stitch at the edge of the neckline. So this is it. This is what it's looking like after joining the neckline. You can see how beautiful and neat our neckline came out, and this is the back view. You can see what it's looking like, and this is the 1 inch we left for overlapping. So we're using our pressing button in order to hold them in place. So we'll fix our pressing button in order to hold it in place. And with this, we have come to the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching to the end. Please, if you find this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section. Most importantly, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the notification bell to get notified whenever we drop a new video. Thank you, stay safe, and see you in the next one. Bye.